David Heurtel in for Elias. Doctors are running wild trying to find an alternative to Ozempic, a drug prescribed to treat diabetes. It helps to efficiently cut one's appetite. And as a result, it has become wildly popular and dangerous as people use it to lose weight. Now, the world is seeing a shortage of it, and doctors are growing concerned, refusing to prescribe it now as a form of weight loss in order to best prioritize those who need it the most. Always happy to be joined by Dr. Christopher Labos, a cardiologist with a degree in epidemiology, who can be heard at 8:10 on Sunday mornings on CJAD 800, on Weekends with Ken. Happy New Year, Dr. Labos.
Happy New Year to you, too.
Thank you. So, what's going on with Ozempic?
Well, for people who haven't heard, Ozempic, or semaglutide as it's known chemically, is a diabetes medication, but it's also a very effective weight loss medication. And it has experienced a surge in popularity, a lot of it deserved, some of it excessive. And the problem that's resulted is that because it's become so popular, demand has outstripped supply. And it's become very difficult for some people to get access to the medication because there just isn't enough of it out there, especially when you consider the large numbers of people that are going out and wanting to take it for weight loss, not just for treatment of diabetes.
So in terms of how big this has become, I mean, do you have any idea? Because I get the hype.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing reports over the holidays. I've even heard reports from the U.S. economic side, so the business side of it, saying that Ozempic is so popular now for weight loss, it may have an impact on like fast food companies. So how big a problem is this, and how worried are we about people that take it for diabetes?
Well, yeah, it is a bit of an issue, and you are right that when it started coming out and when, you started to have all these positive trials showing that it led to not just weight loss, but also a decrease in cardiovascular disease, a lot of fast food companies lost stock value.
Yeah.
Their stock prices dropped. It's interesting that what has happened with this medication is that it has really changed the narrative in terms of how we treat obesity. And there's no doubt that they do work. The current shortage is probably going to be a short-term phenomenon. In Quebec, we don't see it as much, although we are subject to the same market forces that we see globally because the government, restricts who has access to this medication, and therefore it's not covered by RAMP. Only people with private insurance can go out and get it sort of for other indications. So we don't have the same sort of run on Ozempic that you're seeing in the U.S. Part of the problem in the U.S. is that because the medication semaglutide is marketed as both Ozempic and Wegovy, one for diabetes and one for weight loss, people are sort of exploiting a loophole in the bureaucracy of how medication is funded in the U.S. to get it for unjustified or unjustifiable reasons. So that's partly why you've seen this ridiculous surge in demand. Over time, I do suspect this is going to equalize, and of course, the company is going to ramp up manufacturing to meet the demand eventually, just that these things take time. So I suspect that within 6 months to a year, we're not going to be talking about this issue anymore. And the other thing is that there is a second medication in the same drug class that is now on the market, tirzepatide, that goes by the name of Mounjaro, if I remember correctly, which is probably also going to help meet the demand somewhat. So I think this problem is going to resolve itself. And I think it's going to be significant in that we are going to look back at this moment in time as sort of the before and after of how we treated obesity in the same way that we look back at, the inception of Viagra or the, Viagra coming onto the market and look at that as the before and after of how we treated erectile dysfunction, a condition which before had no good treatment and now is frankly rather easily treated in most circumstances.
Now, where are we in terms of analyzing the side effects? Because I get that since it's being prescribed, it must be perceived as safe. But have we seen any developments on using Ozempic to treat weight loss? Are we seeing any kind of, maybe yellow lights or even red lights in certain instances?
Well, there are. And so we have to make a distinction between side effects and contraindications. So there are certain groups of people who should not be prescribed Ozempic or anything else from the same drug class, honestly. The big one is anybody with a family history of thyroid cancer. There's a specific genetic condition called multiple endocrine neoplasia. It's very rare, but it does happen. So anybody with a family history of thyroid cancer should not be prescribed this medication. There is some concern that anybody with a history of pancreatic cancer or a family history of pancreatic cancer maybe also shouldn't get prescribed this medication. So those are the contraindications, the groups of people who should not get it. The other issue is the people who take the medication and experience side effects, which happens with all medications. Right. Because what Ozempic does is that it blunts the appetite and it slows gastric emptying, a lot of people do experience potentially very, very bad nausea and even vomiting and gastrointestinal upset. And a lot of people who take the medication and then stop do it because they can't tolerate the nausea and the vomiting. The way we get around it medically is you start at a very low dose and you increase it slowly because the symptoms do get better with time, but some people just can't tolerate it. And so there's a lot of people who start the medication and then have to stop it because they can't see it through. Because you do have to take the medication for a while to start to see the weight loss benefits. And frankly, it is a medication that has to be continued long-term and chronically to treat what is fundamentally a chronic problem.
Now, because of the way Ozempic works and its impact, obviously it cuts down on your hunger, your craving for food. I've also heard that, this type of drug, not necessarily Ozempic, but this type of drug and this type of use could be targeted at other types of quote unquote dependencies or cravings. Have you seen that? Is that the way we're going? I mean, are we going to see these types of drugs to cut down on any type of behavior where you're either not just eating too much, but maybe drinking too much or anything else that you're doing too much?
So there has been some anecdotal evidence and some observational data linking these types of medications to things like obsessive compulsive disorder for exactly the reason that you mentioned, that it's helping to cut back on compulsion. So, are we going to be able to use it in this circumstance? Possibly. I think it's going to be interesting to see if people can do trials on this specifically for this endpoint. Right now, if we're going to be completely data-driven, the things that these medications do is they treat diabetes, they cause weight loss, even in people who are non-diabetic, and regardless of the indication, they will reduce the risk of you having a cardiovascular event in the future. So that we can be pretty certain on. The obsessive compulsive stuff, it's interesting. People have forwarded a pretty good explanation as to why it should work. We'll see if it actually bears itself out in the data to come.
And ultimately, the thing is it a lifelong thing? I mean, if you take Ozempic, you lose the weight, and if you stop Ozempic, do you regain the weight?
So the short answer to that is yes, because you haven't fixed the underlying problem, right? It's like having high blood pressure. You have high blood pressure, you take medication, your blood pressure goes down. But if you stop the medication, your blood pressure goes back up again. Now, it's not inconceivable that if you use Ozempic to lose the weight and then, use that as motivation to change your lifestyle, could you then maintain your new weight with just diet and exercise? I mean, it is possible, but I think we have to start looking at obesity in the same way that we look at all other chronic medical conditions. They require chronic treatments because the underlying problem, whether it's genetically mediated or not, has not actually gone away.
Very interesting, as always. Thank you so much, Dr. Labos.
My pleasure, sir. You take care.
You too. Dr. Christopher Labos is a cardiologist with a degree in epidemiology who can be heard at 8:10 on Sunday mornings on CJAD 800, on Weekends with Ken.